Greetings, welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the annual retrograde of the so-called wounded healer Chiron, which begins this year on July the 30th through to the 2nd of January next year. 22 weeks, so 5 months. Chiron made its way into the sign of Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, on the 18th of February 2019. Now he's going to be making his way into Taurus next year in May, but will invert back into Aries in September before moving into Taurus for the longer term in 2027. I'm absolutely fascinated by Chiron. In a natal chart, the zodiac sign Chiron exists within, but also the house and the relationship Chiron forges with other planetary players tells us a huge amount about where a person can show their superpower. Chiron has a reputation for vulnerability, and it's true. Wherever we glow up may be where we feel least seen or heard in our own inner world, our own inner situation. And the myth goes like this: Chiron, a centaur, a demigod, was the son of Kronos, in Roman mythology, Saturn, so very much to do with time. But unlike those other centaurs, Chiron was very much a healer. He understood herbs, he understood medicine, he understood astrology. He was, if you like, a Greek life coach. And he also taught the martial arts to the warriors and gave Hercules a bow and arrow to test out, and an arrow accidentally pierced Chiron's foot. And the myth is it could never be healed, so the poison could never be healed. So that's incredible. So Chiron lived with this pain, and some astrologers feel that we do all live with the pain. We can never completely resolve it. Other astrologers may feel that Chiron's influence is more psychological, whereas some people would argue that if, say, Saturn or Pluto are applying to Chiron in a testing aspect, in a transit, that actually can have a big impact on physical health. So there are some different viewpoints here. I'm going to tell you what I think Chiron's retrograde is all about, but also you've got the chance to download your workbook, Chiron Survival Guide. And also within that, I'll go into much more detail about the mythology of Chiron. Please see the link beneath this video to do that, totally free. But also, I'm going to share with you the event chart for when Chiron stations retrograde, because ironically, as he does, he's in a testing relationship with Mars, the ruler of Aries. We also need to be conscious that Saturn and Neptune are retrograde in Aries, but there is a much more positive link to Venus in Gemini. So I'm going to unpack all of that for you. Also, who's going to be most directly impacted by this? Well, if you are a cardinal sign, so that is Aries itself, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or you have planets in the cardinal signs from 20 degrees through to 59 minutes, yes, you will feel the impact of this retrograde most keenly. But then please stay with me through to the end, and I will go through each of the 12 zodiac signs to give you a flavour of where I feel that you're going to have to work at it over these next 5 months. Thank you so much for joining me. It's such a pleasure to do my work. And if you are new to my channel, if you have any thoughts, please feel very welcome to share them. This is very much a community. I try to answer as many comments as possible. If you're a returning visitor, all your views and interactions are truly appreciated. But we have found that 50% of the people who watch my videos regularly are not subscribers. If that's you, please help the channel to thrive and do so now. But also please click or tap the bell notification symbol. If you become a member of YouTube, thank you. I really appreciate it. And my Patreons too. I've set the rates as affordable as possible. Please check out about that below. If you would like to think about having a one-to-one with me, please read my testimonials below. You don't have to make a decision to book straight away, but you'll just get an idea of how I work, but most of all what people have found working with me. It's always very humbling when people write what they do. It truly, truly is. If you'd like to visit my website at patrickarundell.com, we continue to evolve and improve it. For example, we've taken the ads off the free tarot. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a 3-card 3 tarot, but each of the cards has an individual text for the right context, so that makes it that much more potent. Also, you can download your free natal chart. There's loads of them on the internet, but not one with this interpretation. Please see below. You can also, through my website, sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. But you can also go on the site and read your free daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, general, love and Vedic horoscopes. And it's really coming together. We've got it going faster, it's leaner, and we're going to be continuing to improve it over time. You can also take advantage of my unique offer and order your personal, totally unique year 2026 transits forecast. Now, I'll give you the rest of this year 3, but also with 30% off, you'll get your life roadmap report, which I feel is the most important document any one of us can read, because it helps us to understand our identity. And Chiron in Aries, ironically, very much about identity. And understanding the patterns then, together with the forecast, means that we can time our moves the best. Please see below for more. So Chiron goes retrograde every year for about 5 months. And this year stations retrograde on July the 30th. So let's just think about Chiron in Aries. Chiron in Aries, I feel, is very much about identity. But if we think back over the last couple of years, we've had the nodal axis in terms of the North Node, the point of destiny in Aries. We've also had the solar eclipse series, and we had the last of those in March this year. So we're still surfing that energy, that backdrop. But then we've had the complexity of Saturn and Neptune's, initially Neptune and Saturn's arrival in Aries, and they're both in retrograde. So Chiron going retrograde as well suggests that despite the progress we may have made with the help of the North Node and also the solar eclipses in Aries to define our individuality, that may be somewhat tested over the next 5 months. And what the retrograde can do is, I feel, is where there are still areas that we need to work on that are perhaps not quite as resolved as they could be, particularly around our sense of self, our ego, getting stronger about that, then those are the things that could come up for us in quite a powerful way. And it, of course, does depend on how the retreating Chiron interacts with your natal chart. That's a critical thing. But because we were pushed by the solar eclipse and the North Node to become more conscious of what it means to stand in our power, why don't we do it as much as we could? And I think in some ways it's because of the amount of stimuli which is absolutely, coming towards us, at the speed of light. There's so much, so we can get a little bit lost. And also through things like Facebook, we're seeing how other people do things, we're seeing their life experiences. People are very skilled at framing their life experiences in an incredibly positive way. So if our lives aren't going quite as well, that in itself can feed the wound. So one of the things that we need to do in some ways, I feel, particularly with Saturn and Neptune conjunct in the sign of Aries, because they're lowering our physical vitality, is being very, very mindful of using the energy we have got in a very applied and a very cautious way, if you like, because if we spread ourselves too thin, try to do too much, try in some ways even to be too conscientious, it isn't necessarily a good thing. Because let's think about the sign of Aries. It's the beginning of the journey. And it's also about our bodies, and it's also about where we initiate. It's about where we have courage, where we're more daring and bold. So with 3 players in retrograde, the chances are those qualities could be tested. So the energies that we are using, we need to do so thoughtfully for sure. We hear a lot these days, don't we, about mindfulness, but actually there is a point on this particular situation. So my workbook will give you a lot of intel on how to deal with the detail of this retrograde. And also because I'm going to flesh out the myth, a much greater understanding of that too, and how it can feed into your situation. But if you do have Chiron, for example, in your first house, you may have experienced throughout your life, particularly if it was retrograde when you were born, a struggle to really establish your life force. But then you may have been absolutely brilliant at encouraging other people to live out their strengths to the best of their abilities. Because remember, Chiron is definitely our superpower. It's just where we feel most delicately not seen or heard. So if you're in any kind of relationship, whether it's professionally, in the family, with a partner, with your friends, where your desire to be individual, different, fresh, totally uniquely you is not really working for you, it's time for a rethink. And it may be time to consider things like counselling, watching some videos online that can give you some coaching tips, and becoming your own Chiron, becoming your own life coach, developing a narrative to soothe and ease when at times we can be jarred because modern life is harsh. You know, and there's so much opinion, there's so much polarization. It's very brutal if people have a different point of view to us, and that in its own way can erode our sense of confidence and our sense of ego, because it's important to have an ego, not an enlarged ego. We don't want to be a narcissist. What we want to do is live our lives to the best of our ability, free of worry and stress. But also remember, wherever Chiron is in your natal chart, that's where you're going to have unique and brilliant qualities. For example, if you've got Chiron in the water sign, so we're going 4, 8, 12, you're going to be incredibly empathetic, but may feel not seen. 12, very psychologically astute. 8, but perhaps at times not feeling that other people are as invested in you as you'd like. Brilliant around supporting family members or helping people with their emotional problems. 4, but feeling they don't care about your needs. That's all totally possible. If we're thinking about houses 1, 5, 9, very much more direct. It is about the coaching, the knowledge, the encouragement, but again, may not feel seen. And then if we're talking about the more earthy houses, so we're talking about 2, 6 and 10, however hard we work, we don't ever feel that other people really recognise that industry and that application, which in itself can be quite challenging. And then when it comes to communications, 3 could be someone who feels that their siblings really don't like them, but actually could be a brilliant communicator. If it's 7, a fantastic listener and wonderful at being supportive, but sense that a partner doesn't take their needs as seriously. And then 11, a wonderful friend, but doesn't always get calls when one doesn't feel very well or is out of the loop. So Chiron does this for all of us, and it's something that I do believe we do have to continue to work at. But just to give you a little bit of an idea of someone pretty famous, so President Trump has his Chiron in Libra. Now Libra is a sign of diplomacy, but it's also a sign potentially, and remember every sign, every house and every planet has its higher energetic vibration, but also its lower one. So the lowest part of Libran energy can be a little bit superficial, but Jupiter applies to his Chiron, and Jupiter needs to be, or can be, I should say, somewhat boastful, but it also in an application on Chiron in the second house, as it is for him, it's about money. but it's about self-worth. There's a wound there. So the persona is very much about the gold taps, the big high-rise, the person who can do this and do that. But what's underneath? Because with Jupiter we can get amplification, but that amplification can be hugely positive, because it could make someone, and I'm sure President Trump has got his own favourite causes and charities, so it can make people extremely generous, that particular combination. But because Libra likes to give an impression of implacable calm and coping well, so that's very much about the exterior, isn't it? It's not so much about the interior. And the second house is really about how we value ourselves. If we don't value ourselves, with Jupiter in the mix, we may try to big ourselves up to cover our wound. So that's just an example, sharing on the screen now briefly President Trump's natal chart. So let's just think about when Chiron stations direct. So on the screen now, I've done it in a solar zodiac format. I did look at the natal, and the reason I use solar on this particular occasion was that I just wanted to illustrate it as clearly as possible. So we've got Chiron there in Aries, and of course that's in house 1. So house 1, very much about that personal identity, our physicality, our body, our energy, the amount of passion and drive that we have, the part of our chart where we're entering the world and we're making a splash, and we can be daring, but perhaps a little bit lacking in some experience or knowledge. But we have, in the guise of Venus on the analytic degree in Gemini, because it's going to be moving into Cancer on the 30th of July, what we do have there is Venus in a lovely sextile. So we could go into this Chiron retrograde talking or thinking or relating to someone, such as a counsellor, a therapist, a good friend, a trusted confidant, someone who's very experienced, who can give us a lot of encouragement about what does make what we're doing very positive, even if we're doubting ourselves with the retrograde. But what's much more challenging, I feel, is the position of Mars, and that's why I chose to do the solar illustration, starting the chart at 0 degrees Aries at the vernal point, is because Mars, the ruler of the sign of Aries, is in Virgo. And Virgo is interesting because some people would argue that Virgo isn't about health. Some astrologers would say it's Scorpio, and that Virgo is much more to do with virtue. So it's what we eat and drink, our routines. It can be to do with cleanliness and personal hygiene. So it's where we're actually going through the processes. The outcome might be more the 8th or scorpionic energy. But Mars in the sign of Virgo can actually lose a little bit of its ego and be much more concerned with doing things to help others, which is brilliant, but they're not on good terms. They're in a quincunx, or a 150-degree angle. So Chiron's desiring feedback, and there's Mars busy with something else and distracted, perhaps even feeling a little bit irritated. So I think it's interesting that we could have some very positive conversations over the next 5 months, where we do encounter those people who can support us, much as Chiron would have supported his warriors, but we can also encounter people who can be quite dismissive. And we are seeing quite a big pushback just generally in society against people with vulnerabilities, or people, perhaps minorities, people with disabilities, because there is a cost. And the theme at the moment seems to be very much about the financial implications rather than the societal implications. So that may see some things occur which are not so good. And we also, of course, have Venus and Mars in a square, which has peaked. It peaked last week. And if we think about it, Mars is impatient in Virgo and perhaps a bit of a perfectionist, and Venus in Gemini can like to chat but perhaps struggle a little bit to really put across something that's more tangible. That's how Mars may see it. Or Mars's brusqueness crush the desire of Venus to be peaceful and to communicate a positive message. So over the next 5 months, this particular chart will play out. It will have a backdrop. So we're going to see it in the provision of services around health insurance, hospitals. We're talking about a big industrial dispute in Britain with doctors going on strike, and that's the vigour of Mars. A lot of surgeons actually have Mars in Virgo, or the 6th house, because of the ability to concentrate on the details. But we're seeing straight away that there is an echo in society of this particular manifestation of this chart. So we're not going to find it easy to be heard, but there will be someone that we can chat to, but we're going to have to be quite disciplined. So one of the things we can do to support our physical health, without any doubt at all, particularly with Saturn and Neptune in that draining conjunction in retrograde with Saturn through to the end of August, 1st of September, we must make sure that we're not overdoing it. We're getting as much sleep and rest, and we're leading our lives in an organised way as possible, because the watery, draining energy of Neptune can erode the structure and perhaps even the efficiency of our lives. Saturn, of course, is about trying to keep everything well structured and well timed and be very hard-working and applied. So we're not going to have an awful lot of energy over these next 5 months, and what we do have, we've got to use conscientiously and carefully. So for us all, it's a great time as more and more information is coming out about food additives, processed food, ultra processed food. I've had a thing about it for 30 or 40 years, to be honest. I used to work in supermarketing, but I've always bought my food in whole food stores or locally, organically, where possible, because the more we keep it, the food chain, to the minimum, the more we're keeping some of the things that are added or the things that are used to bulk up. We're now finding a lot of the bulky things that are put into even vegan products, processed foods, are not good for us at all, like carrageenan, I think it is, and emulsifiers and stabilizers and all these kind of things. So all of us can take more responsibility for what we do, but I think the more spiritual, psychological message of Chiron's retrograde is to work on our heart energy, knowing that however much we support and encourage other people, we won't necessarily be celebrated. But what we can do is work on that self-talk, that really nurturing and reminding ourselves that our identity is good, that what we're doing is fresh, that even if it's not what other people on Facebook are doing, it doesn't matter. It's what we do that really counts, because we're all individual. So if we focus more on our inner world rather than what's going on outside and what everyone else is doing, we're going to survive this Chiron retrograde all the better. So you can download your workbook, your Chiron Survival Guide workbook, absolutely free, with the mythological guide too, by clicking the link beneath this video. But please stay with me as I go through each of the TAURUS zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, to give you a flavour of what you can expect from the end of July through to the start of January next year. So Aries, in the time that Chiron has been in your sign, since February 2019, you've had the added blessing of the North Node with you through to around about the 12th, the true North Node, 12th of January this year. And of course you've had the eclipse season making its way through your sign too, and the last blast of that was in March. So all of that should be giving you the opportunity to really develop your sense of identity. It's just that since then the North Node has been inverting in the most psychological part of your chart, pulling you towards a deeper reflection. Saturn and Neptune also in that part of your situation, in the case of Saturn over the last couple of years, until he pitched up in your sign on the 25th of May. And they're of course both in retrograde now, but they also were connecting to Venus, particularly Saturn, on 3 occasions. So the psychological part of your situation around Your connection to others has been very strong this year, but the first house, or the sign of Aries, is very much about where we actualize our identity. So I don't feel that that's been very easy at all this year. So even though Chiron's now going retrograde, through to the 2nd of January next year, through those 5.5 degrees, and may have an impact on your natal chart. If you do have planets between 20 and 29 degrees plus the minutes, yes, I get that, but I feel the action's already been going on this year between stepping into a new start, Saturn moving into your sign, and then of course he's going to invert back into Pisces on the 1st of September. So you've got quite a lot of heavy celestial traffic to deal with here, particularly if there is a wound. And that wound could be that you are not quite as invested and assured in who you are, what you represent. You're not strutting your stuff in the world that perhaps people think an Aries would, and in a way that creates even more pressure. So how do we unpack this? I feel the most important thing to understand is that with Saturn and Neptune coming to the end of huge cycles of time, in the case of Neptune, just over 170 years. Saturn, it's a 29.5-year cycle. So when they come back into your sign and come together in a conjunction on the 18th of February next year, that is truly a new epoch. So what you might be doing in the interim is have a little bit of a sift out. There may be a grand shuffle going on, particularly with people who drain you. I think it's really important to understand that however much we work internally with Chiron, if we're connecting to people around us who are not doing so much good for our energetic exchange, that can also be a negative as well. So it's having the courage, in a sense, to let go and release, to not hold on to things, to recognize that we're not going to have a win. Not every situation is going to be a sparkling success. In a way, lower our expectations. Then you can free up your attention to work deep within yourself on the things that you could alter. It may be your frame of mind. It could be the things you're attached to. It could be some lifestyle choices. It could be some self-soothing you need to develop, encouraging yourself to keep the faith even when obstacles do come up. So I would say this next 5 months for you is a fantastic window of opportunity to really let go of a whole load of stuff that goes back over a whole load of time. And if it does feel uncomfortable through this period, just know the eclipse season next year is going to switch into Aquarius and Leo, and that's going to bring a lot more thrust, excitement, and also with Jupiter moving into Leo next year as well, there's lots to look forward to later on in 2027. So I think that this is a big transformational moment for you. So if it's not feeling perfect in your life just now, don't beat yourself up. Try to accept it, but also try to work with it too. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3-card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. So Taurus, Chiron in Aries is very much about identity, but the sign of Aries is also about taking the initiative. But for you, because Chiron goes retrograde along with Saturn and Neptune in your 12th solar house, you're being urged to take the initiative to grapple with some parts of life, perhaps even yourself, that may not be quite so obvious. Because the 12th house can be about the more psychological, emotional and spiritual domain. Now, if you're someone who's very much into personal development and healing, this will be food and water for you. And this next 5 months can see you engage with those areas even more. But if you're someone who lives in a much more practical dimension, it may be that there's parts of your life, your personality, or your life experience that you've not quite completely grappled with in quite as intimate way as you might. And for most of us, that is to do with things like fear, insecurities, the parts of ourselves we don't feel as comfortable around. And it can relate to our past history, but also it can relate the 12th house to where we felt let down, perhaps in some ways abandoned, where people have not been as loyal or as supportive. And if some of those things from your past predominantly are still washing around in the depths of your being, they could be having an impact on the here and now in terms of your drive and physical energy. So the great opportunity for you with this Chiron retrograde is to not judge yourself if you do have some vulnerabilities. We all have them. It's part of the human state. Yet we live in a world where it's very much to do with manifesting capability, beauty, the dashing things that we're doing, whether it's to do with travel, entertainment. But this is a journey that, if you embrace it, could prove to be incredibly valuable to you and prepare you for when Chiron does make that first entrance to your sign next year. So if you're someone who has been a little resistant to looking at things like healing, having therapeutic treatments, perhaps going deep within, exploring things like mindfulness or meditation, yoga, perhaps natural medicines, this is your time to embrace those fully, because by doing so, particularly with Saturn being in retrograde here, you're actually going to gain a great deal, and that is going to prepare you hugely to launch forwards in a much more dynamic way. But it's not a window of opportunity that I feel you can just kind of ignore. So if you do have some health issues that just niggle away at you and you found them a little bit difficult to resolve, don't exclude that there could be a psychological or emotional basis for those, because it is amazing how much our feelings, particularly from our past disappointments, can be lodged deep within our muscles, and becoming much more conscious of those, doing the breathing, releasing, can be so healthy and positive for you. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. Gemini, Chiron in Aries being about identity, and for you the 11th house suggests that how you connect to others, perhaps your friendship group, your network, could be in some ways a little too important for you in terms of how you're working on your inner self. And this is going to be flagged up particularly strongly through to the end of August because of Saturn retrograde in the sign of Aries, along with Neptune in that conjunction. So if there are particular associations you've had, maybe people that you have great respect for, but you don't seem very heard, don't feel very appreciated, despite all the prompting you may do to bring people together, to galvanize people, that may be a great gift you've got. But how many of those people are tuning in to what's going on at the heart of your world? How many people are the friends who are really active in your world in a more emotional context? Because that's the big question that you could find yourself asking right through really to the 2nd of January next year. But as ever with Chiron, there's an opportunity, because even if you are someone who's an advocate, you're brilliant at building some kind of community, you're networking for fun, you're using social media skillfully, it's what's going on within you. Does this create the validation that really makes you feel happy, or are you feeling bereft in some kind of way? Because the other thing about the 11th house, it's not just about our friendships, our network, it's also about our higher values, and it can also be about our long-term future. And if you don't really feel invested in those connections, the path you're on at the present time, this may be a moment that you can use over these next 5 months to think very, very deeply about what would truly enrich you. And it may be that there's something that you need to evolve from, that you need to let go of, because you're not receiving the feedback you truly deserve. Another fascinating thing about Chiron, I think, once we let go of our expectations, it does get a lot easier. And of course, it will depend on where Chiron is in your natal chart and what house it's in. But just collectively for Geminis, the next 5 months is certainly going to see you thinking very carefully about your connections, however much you've tried to do your best, but whether you're feeding your sense of identity within those alliances or not. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. So Cancer, Aries being very much about identity, Chiron in Aries about encouraging us to manifest our identity to the maximum extent. It's possible for you in the 10th house, if you're not feeling very seen, heard, respected in terms of your professional interactions, your worldly connections, you're not in a job which really feeds your soul, this is going to be a very important 5 months, particularly through to the end of August with Saturn still in that sector too and in retrograde. The chances are, I think you've already been asking yourself some questions, and because the position of Mercury in Leo may see you thinking about the financial implications of any change that you're contemplating, I feel there's a lot for you to process at the present time. So how do we unpack this? Well, essentially, the 10th house is where we have to be a little bit bolder, braver, because it's the part of our chart that's to do with the sunlight. It's where we're most visible. It's where we have to have that confidence to take on responsibilities, to perhaps provide leadership. And remember, yours is a sign of leadership. You're a cardinal sign. But if you're not really enjoying a professional role you have at the present time, or you're doing a lot in your community but don't feel very seen or respected for that effort, that's where you could be rethinking. But particularly if you have planetary influences, not just the sun, the moon or the ascendant in Cancer, but planetary influences in the last 10 degrees of each of the three other cardinal signs beyond your own. So how is this going to play out? Well, you may find yourself talking to a coach. Perhaps it will be an employment agency. Maybe you're going to sign up that gives you more opportunity to expand your reach, make yourself more known to people. And if you're comfortable with this process, I don't feel that Chiron's retrograde is going to touch you too much. Another thing that can happen is that you may be working hard, conscientiously and diligently and doing a great job, but you've got a boss who never seems to recognize the effort and commitment that you're showing, and that too could cause a little bit of an issue, because remember, Chiron is where we're brilliant. It's our superpower, but it also can be where we don't feel that we're being nurtured. So if you don't feel that you're getting the praise and recognition that's truly due to you, as well as not really enjoying the role you're doing, you're really on the track to a big rethink. And I think once Saturn verts back into Pisces, your sister water sign, on the 1st of September, I feel by then you will be very much on the way to making a binding decision about what to do. And I feel that in a sense, even if you do create your liberty, and there are some challenges with that, perhaps even financially, or a loss of status or visibility, if it just feels right, that's so essentially important to a water sign like you. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card Tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. So Leo, for you, it represents Chiron in Aries, your 9th house. Now, if you have got any vulnerabilities in terms of your personal identity, about what you know, the amount of knowledge you've got, perhaps you didn't have the opportunity to have higher education when you were younger, that may be something that still lingers. Perhaps also, in some kind of way, you're feeling fenced in your world. You may not be quite as free and able to be as adventurous and independent as you would like. And of course, with Mercury in retrograde in your sign at the present time, it's not going to be a surprise if you are rethinking some of the things that you could try. So what I would say with Chiron retrograde for you, and particularly with Saturn through to the end of August, you may have to grapple with something that could see you pushed outside your comfort zone. And it may be by going on a course. It could be about applying for some professional training. These may be things that you are open to in some ways, but perhaps there's another part of you that can be resistant, because one of the things about your sign is you are fixed. It's not always easy for you to initiate new beginnings. Sometimes you can be more comfortable with what you know. But the great thing about as this event occurs is that Uranus, the planet of innovation and surprises, has moved into a much more forward-thinking part of your situation. And you could find that your connections to others can be enlivened. So some very knowledgeable and wise people could give their opinion, give you counsel right through to the 2nd of January next year. And the more responsive and open you are to doing different things, traveling different places, learning different things, reading different information, all of that will help you to work on the identity which Chiron and Aries is very much about, but in your case, where you perhaps are playing it a bit too safe or feeling a bit weakened in some ways because you don't perhaps feel that you have the academic or professional knowledge in terms of the qualification that other people have, and you may be comparing yourself unfavorably, but actually not necessarily accurately, because if you do these kind of courses, you may end up finding out that you know a huge amount that maybe other people don't because of the life experiences you've got. So it can be very confirming for your sense of identity. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. So for you, Virgo, the Aries energy, where Chiron is starting its retrograde, can be about where we're most invested, devoted, but also attached. It can be about long-term finance, can be about success in terms of entrepreneurship, can also be about intimacy too. So if any of those areas are not really glowing up for you at the present time, particularly with the hardcore Saturn in retrograde and the dissolving Neptune too in the same sign, that's where the energy is going to go, or ask you to work with, through to the 2nd of January. So let's think about your love life. If you're in a relationship but find it hard to feel close and at ease, that may be where you need to take the initiative, which is what Aries energy is about, to try to understand more how you could change the situation. But then again, you could be someone who's incredibly invested in a close relationship, do your absolute best, but you don't feel that you get much back from the other person. Entirely possible, which is hardly validating. Then again, you may have a brilliant business idea and marshal your resources in a very skilled way, but haven't quite got the trigger point to receive the rewards that you so richly deserve. Also, the 8th house can be about where we need to transform. Essentially in astrology, it's a scorpionic type of vibe, so it can be about evolving, transformation, but it can also be about the things we need to let go of, but also the things that might start to come into our life because of the natural cycle of life. ends and beginnings. So if you are clinging on to something because it gives you a sense of financial security, staying in a relationship which isn't working because you're fearful of being outside of it, those are the things that Chiron's asking you to work towards. But the 8th house is very mysterious. It's not very obvious. There may be some secrets that you need to unlock, release, bring into the open, because the more light you can put on them, the more you can release the blockages that could potentially be holding you back. So you can see with Chiron in Aries, in retrograde, for the 8th house for you, there's lots of different scenarios. None of them may apply exactly to you, or maybe more than one. The key is to understand that there is the chance to evolve, and that evolution is going to come from analysis. And the 8th house is very much about penetrating beneath the surface. So even if everything looks honky-dory on the surface, if something's inhibiting you, stopping you investing in a situation, or believing you're worthy of being intimate with someone, those are all the strands that are going to come up through to the 2nd of January next year. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde workbook and mythological guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. So Libra, Chiron going retrograde in your 7th house is really intriguing, because the 7th house is very much about you. It's your ability to pick up where other people are coming from, to skillfully tune into that. It doesn't mean to say that you always give away your power, but you have a spirit of collaboration, which some of us zodiac signs don't have. But of course, there could be situations where you're often being very obliging to other people, very supportive, but when it comes to your situation, it seems they're busy, they're not tuned in. And if that has been something of a repetitive pattern in your life, particularly through to the end of August with Saturn in a retrograde in your 7th house, along with Neptune later into the autumn, it's possible that with the Chiron retrograde, this is a very important opportunity for you to really dive deep, to understand much more about some of the techniques that you could learn to actually focus on you. Because say you make a nice gesture or an offer to someone and they're not responsive, you could at times feel somewhat wounded by that. That's a natural human response. But what you could also do is self-soothe much more along the basis of celebrating your dignity, your generosity, what makes you so skilled at understanding that the world is not just about what you need, it's important what other people need as well. But the converse could be true. You could be someone who doesn't find relationships and connecting to people so easy. And if that is the case, perhaps your chart isn't so classically Libran, maybe you've got more Virgo or Scorpionic energy. This is a chance to become much more conscious of how other people may see you and what they are wanting from you. I feel relationships essentially is finding the tip point between what we need, getting what we need met, but also getting what the other person needs met too. And sometimes we may end up giving more to someone around where they may not be so strong, and they can give to us where we may not have a particular capacity. So it doesn't have to be quid pro quo, but generally speaking, if there is a sense of trying to work at things together, that's what can often be celebrated by your sign. So if that's missing in your life at the moment, you're giving too much, not getting enough, or perhaps a little bit unaware of how other people feel about you and what they want from you, it's a time when you can double down on trying to develop the strategies to strengthen how you feel, especially if you are a giver. Because one of the things with 7th house energy, especially if people have the moon and Venus in the 7th house, is they can often become invisible because they give so much to others, and that's not a good place to be. And essentially the sign of Aries is about ego. Ego is important. If we're spending our whole time worrying about what other people think or want, we're denying what's richly important for us. So that's all the scenarios you need to work at and grapple with over the next 5 months, but particularly with Saturn in your 7th house through to the 1st of September. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. Scorpio, Chiron in Aries is about how we actualize our identity. Are you doing that by being very productive, efficient, a people pleaser, being very conscientious? They're all great qualities, but in some ways, particularly with your traditional ruler Mars in a quincunx, with the position of Chiron as this event begins, are in some ways you giving away your power through all of that? Only you can answer this equation. But if there are parts of your life that, yes, you can be more virtuous around, whether it is about what you eat and drink, the amount of exercise you get, that's all fine, because obviously Chiron can be about healing. If you can be a little more attentive around those areas, there's lots to gain, because to be honest, with Saturn and Neptune in retrograde in your 6th house, if there is something you're doing that's not so good for you, it's probably going to show up, and that could push you together with Chiron to make some fundamental changes. But I think it's more around your domestic situation. If you're so focused on trying to make things perfect at home, that may actually give you a sense of personal satisfaction, but it might actually see you a little worried, a little too focused on getting things absolutely exactly right. And maybe there's a need to relax a little bit, give yourself permission to not necessarily get everything working exactly efficiently. But if you're also in a job where you're giving it everything, putting all your effort in, but it doesn't seem that you ever get any recognition for the attention to detail and the support you give other people, the conscientiousness that you're showing, maybe you need to think again about the type of work you're doing, particularly at this time with the sun high in the sky along with Mercury retracing its steps. This is a fantastic opportunity to think whether some of the skills, knowledge and processes that you've gained through years of experience could be applied in a different and fresh scenario, which gives you much greater satisfaction and therefore feeds your soul. And as a water sign, that's what it's all about. So the 6th house can be very good, but it can also see us being perhaps too focused on supporting other people, trying to make life perfect at perhaps a more obvious level, when there's other things we can do, small but important changes that could actually improve your sense of vitality and wellness. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. Sagittarius, you share an affinity of course with Aries because you're both fire signs. You have a reputation for being dramatic, bold, adventurous, independent and outspoken. But Aries for you is your 5th house. The 5th house is where we manifest our talents, but it can be where we have fun. It's definitely about romance. Can be about children if we'd like to have children or we have them, supporting their pursuits. And it's possible with Chiron in the sign of Aries since February 2019 that your encouragement for other people has been very, very important. But I want to beg this question. With Saturn and Neptune retrograde in your 5th house quite recently, but Saturn and Neptune having occupied your fourth house in recent times, have you lost a little bit of confidence around your interactions with others, about being more free-spirited, playful, sociable and interactive? If not, it's because your life is working in balance. But if you have felt there's a deficit, Chiron retrograde here is definitely something to work with, because the fifth house is where we're really bringing things alive. It kind of has a Leo vibe, if you like. It's warm, it's affectionate, it can be to do with speculation. But Chiron suggests, particularly with Aries being about identity and, as I mentioned, raw energy, if something isn't moving for you, is there something within your inner world which is inhibiting that? So for example, if you're wanting to bring a greater spark to your love life, whether you're in a relationship or not, and it's just not happening, there may be something that Chiron's retrograde can help you with if you embrace it. But as ever with Chiron, we have to work at it. And the same is true with Saturn, retrograde in the fifth house through to the end of August, 1st of September. So what I would say, particularly if you can engage with the workbook, is to look at how you can understand the qualities that you've got, but also set your expectations, but also set what you won't accept, because that's really important. Because if you feel disappointed a lot of the time, it may be actually because your expectation may be somewhat unrealistic. So all of these things are what you can work with Chiron on the inner part of your world. But it's also important for you to manifest the concept of joy, of things working through and starting to happen in a very exciting way. You can put the industry in, always important with Saturn retrograde, but it's also important to put the soul energy in as well. And that's where Chiron comes in. And that comes down to self-belief, because you're someone with huge knowledge, but sometimes your understanding of the knowledge may be in some ways crushing your passion, because you may have already decided that that's the way something is, because that's what you've read, but your inner world is something different. So in other words, I think it's time to create a new inner reality around how you bring joy, pleasure and breakthroughs to your world, particularly in terms of your love life and social interaction. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde workbook and mythological guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. Capricorn, ever since your ruler Saturn moved into the sign of Aries, very much about initiation, identity, on the 25th of May, how have you been finding things? Because of course Saturn is going to be inversing back into the chatty third house on the 1st of September, will make his way back into your fourth house in mid-February next year for about 2.25 years. But your initial take, how has it felt? Have there been some tensions with someone very close to you, a family member within your community? Has your building or property required some maintenance? Have you had to move because of a change around a lease, some kind of alteration? All of these things are possible, but the thing with the fourth house, although it can be about the things that Saturn represents, the structure, it can also be about the inner part of security and nurture. It's a very Cancerian vibe, if you like, and Chiron in the fourth house can be hugely sensitive, but it has got an enormous gift, and that gift is to listen to other people's issues. But because Saturn and Neptune are conjunct in the fourth house too, that won't necessarily correlate in your experience in quite the same way. I feel that if there's someone who automatically assumes that they can unload on you at any moment with their stuff, and not be considerate of how that may feel for you. With Saturn in the retrograde, I feel that that could be something that you're resisting. So Chiron retrograde is going to see you much more conscious of the give and take around support, emotional support. But also if you're someone who tends to be living your life in a very pragmatic, functional and practical way, very much in the real world, what you're being asked to do with Chiron in the 4th house is to learn a lot more about your inner needs, sensitivities, how you feel in different environments. Do you feel heard and respected within your family unit? Is that part of life working in an efficient way? Because if it isn't, particularly around to the 1st of September, while Saturn's still in Aries, this is where you can really put your attention immediately over this next first month. But Chiron retrograde in the 4th house, I feel could at times make you more conscious of your vulnerabilities. Your areas that perhaps feel more sensitive, where you may not feel so strong. And if that does come up, it's very important that you don't judge yourself. This can be an opportunity to expand your understanding of what makes you tick and others tick at a much deeper level. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. Aquarius, Chiron in the 3rd house, very much about communication, as you might imagine, kind of Gemini-like. Connections with people immediately around us, can be siblings, can be through technology. 3rd house, very much to do with those quick buzzy exchanges. Chiron, how do you interact in those ways? If you are a very friendly Aquarius person who likes to have lots of connections, it could be a thoughtful time over the next 5 months. It's not just about having the exchanges, it's what's meant within the exchanges, the subtext. Saturn, your traditional ruler, still in a great link with your modern ruler Uranus, is in a retrograde already since the 25th of May, moved into your 3rd house, and maybe that's given you more heft, an opportunity to feel that there's a bit more gravitas and authority about what you've got to say. Neptune brings a little more subtlety in the mix. But generally speaking, the 3rd house can also be about the nervous system, but how the nervous system is also impacted by information. And one of the things that we're all absolutely assailed with these days is so much information. It's like a huge welter of knowledge that's pelting towards us every second of the day. So maybe the lesson in terms of using Chiron's urging towards creating stronger identity is to become more in touch with the beliefs that are important to you. The 3rd house can be about belief systems, but also perhaps blocking out some of the white noise that isn't so good for you and can drain your nervous system and leave you rather weary. And also there may be some ways of thinking and discussing life that were invested in you when you were very young, those parents' messages that are still quite active within you that may not actually be so appropriate anymore. So there may be a need to reset. And that's interesting, isn't it, with the ruler of the 3rd house, Mercury, in a retrograde in your sector of relating. But I feel you can be very effective in your connections to others, but it's also important to have the soul. It's not just the cold exchange, it is the meaning behind those exchanges. And I feel that that meaning potentially can be amped up through to the 2nd of January. If there has been somewhat of a strain or a fracture with a sibling, a neighbour, perhaps online, it could be healed. It may also be a time when you want to redefine those interactions with people, because at the end of the day, Chiron in Aries is strengthening what we get from it, understanding where we can be very effective. So you might be someone who's very conscientious at writing text to other people. If you don't get them back in turn, if it leaves you feeling a bit empty, that creates a gap. And that's the thing to become more conscious of, what you're not getting back. It's not to say that you don't have brilliant skills and abilities as a writer, as a quick-witted person, as someone who's supportive of your neighbours, but if you don't get it back, that lag can become more obvious over the next 5 months. But what we all need to do, therefore, is to take that thinking inwards, to get stronger about strengthening our identity, even if people don't always respond exactly in the way we want, don't have the same belief systems as us, aren't as reliable in their communication. We're much more resilient to that because of what we're doing inside. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde Workbook and Mythological Guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. So Pisces, Chiron retrograde in Aries. Aries about our identity, about our personality, can be about our appearance. The second house can be about money, self-worth, our values, but it can also be about our appreciation of the calorific goodies of life. So if you're not completely happy with your personal appearance, that could be leading into your sense of self. If you're not earning quite as much as you would like, you can see that fracture your sense of self-worth as well. Or perhaps if there is a more challenging situation around money, it's causing a lot of stress, which would be completely understandable, lowering confidence, lowering resistance, and lowering the immune system. So I think for us all, Saturn and Neptune, your modern ruler, the aquatic Neptune in the sign of Aries, is encouraging us all to be more virtuous about what we're eating and drinking. But for you, at times you may need to indulge a little bit. But I feel that Chiron in the second house is just asking you to work on where you're not validating yourself. You know, we can have someone who could be very successful and still feel a little empty, worthless, even though they've accumulated a degree of financial or material success. So sometimes people can have virtually nothing and be very strong and robust about that identity. So if you're not doing so well financially at the moment, don't see that as an exemplar of who your identity is. That's very important. If you're not quite at the point you'd like to be with your weight, for example, don't let that erode your sense of self, because what we're all having to do is deal with a very complex world at the moment. It's not easy, and the way that we earn money is changing quickly. And for you, with Mercury in retrograde in the 6th house of jobs, maybe you've got some rethinking going on there already. So I just feel that Chiron is giving you permission to develop your own template of what your value is. Don't compare it to anyone else's. I think that's really, really important, particularly with Neptune in the 2nd house, because that comparison stuff that comes mainly through Facebook can be very eroding for us all, I feel. Sometimes we have to close things out. So develop a strength about what you believe in, what you stand for. Know that that's great on its own. You don't need anyone else to feed into the equation. And if your finances are going through a transitional phase of not being so strong, that's understandable, but don't see that as being what makes you a worthwhile person or not. It's actually how we judge ourselves is the most important thing of all. So that's really what Chiron retrograde does for you, Pisces. It gives you an opportunity to liberate yourself from being too hard on yourself in so many different ways, but also to become much more in touch with your values. And one of your values, particularly with Chiron in the second house, over the last 2 or 3 years, well, back to 2019, may have been actually that you've been very encouraging to other people, which is a real gift. And Pisces people can be extraordinarily giving, but it's also important to give to ourselves too. You can download my free Chiron Retrograde workbook and mythological guide by seeing the link beneath this video. Please also visit my new website at patrickarundell.com to get your free natal birth chart, which has got a brilliant interpretation on it. Enjoy my 3 card tarot, or to sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning.